years. It was the most grueling point in my life. It was great too, though, because it forced me to learn about psychology. So
Right.
I after all that, kind of gave me an edge in terms of just understanding how our minds work a little bit better than the average person my age.
At that age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so after a couple of years or so, I threw in the towel. I was like, all right, fuck, just give me some meds because this has got to be a physical ailment.
Right.
Right?
This sounds a lot like chronic anxiety.
Yeah, but you know what, man?
There's more to it
You have
than
to be
that?
careful with the terms.
Right.
Like, the semantics are really important.
Right.
So I thought it was clinical anxiety.
Okay.
And
Okay.
clinical anxiety, my definition of that was, or clinical depression, sorry.
Right. Clinical depression, yeah.
Yeah. So my definition of that was it's something you're born with. Okay, so that's what I believe. All the time leading up from when I started medication when I was around 15 to about, let's say, a year ago when I started seeing my shrink in Toronto.
Yep.
So I don't know how long that is. 15 years?
15 years of trying to figure this out.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the whole time I was on the meds, switching between different ones, because I guess some were kind of wearing off, I thought, and so I'd try a different one. And point is the pills took away the depression. It didn't
Right.
quite handle the anxiety,
Right.
but it took care of the depression, and that stopped me from hanging myself.
Really? Were you that close?
Oh, Christ.
Really?
Oh, fuck. Every single day. Oh, dude, it was...
So you thought about suicide often?
All the time. I would never try it. I would never...
But it was on your mind.
I was like, I wonder if rope is on sale today. It'd be that thing. Oh, dude. It was,
Wow.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So this was a thing, even then when I knew you, we didn't really even talk about this.
Yeah.
This
no.
isn't something that you talked
No,
to.
no. Yeah. I guess I would have been open to it, but
It wasn't something you
society
brought up
at the time, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah,
that's
lots
why
of stigma.
I love what you're doing. That's
Yeah.
It's finally coming out, and it shouldn't be something that people should be ashamed of. Because we're all people, man. We're all fucking stupid.
Yeah, we're all
We're all stupid.
I like how you put that.
We really are.
Yeah.
We're clueless. We have no idea what we're doing here, and we're so afraid.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
So how about we all just man up and just deal with it?
Sure. And just kind of try to say, this is how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Somebody's going to laugh at you, and
And they're the
okay,
fucking
cool.
idiot.
And they're
Like,
the fucking
yeah,
idiot. It's
absolutely.
Like, where's your shrink?
Yeah, sure. What are you trying to
Everyone
figure
needs
out?
one, by the way.
Yeah.
Not even if you have problems. It's good to talk to somebody who isn't attached to your life, who doesn't have any ties to your life. It's good to talk to a stranger,
Right.
which is what these therapists are.
Yeah. And they have a little bit of knowledge behind them.
They have a lot of
Right, which is nice.
Yeah. And if you guys have friends that you talk to, that's great. But I find, if you're suffering, it's not good to keep sharing your pain with your friends because, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, that when you're with your friends, it should be happy time.
Right. Yep.
Once in a while, if you can share it, that's great. And especially if they want to hear it, then absolutely. But that, again, it's just my opinion that you should kind of take that to somebody else, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be about anything serious. Just get stuff off your chest, or if
Right.
you want to write about it, that's another great way. But
Yep.
the point is, everyone needs something, so it shouldn't be taboo or a sensitive issue.
Right.
Anyway, so where I wanted to get to was so that entire period where I was on medication, I thought it was a physical ailment. I thought there was something wrong with the brain. I was genetically predisposed to miswiring, or however you want to call it. We really don't know how the brain works.
No.
I mean, we're starting to understand it. We know a lot more than we ever used to, and we're getting there. Maybe we won't ever completely understand it. Who knows?
Right.
But there's a lot of unknowns, and so it's easy to get confused.
Sure.
It's easy to be misled in terms of narrowing down the source of things. So again, so I thought it was just physical. I couldn't do anything about it. You just have to take meds and you're good. So then when I moved to Toronto, everything was fine. I was happy, but then experienced the culture shock. Noticed certain things happening, like it was hard to make friends.
Yep.
And I would try to attribute to maybe my age, maybe it's a city, maybe it's, you know, a number of other things. And anyways, it was just weird. It was different. I thought I could handle it. I was a little bit mad at myself for not being able to cope with a change that easy.
Right.
You know, it's a 2-hour drive away, right?
Sure.
It shouldn't be that difficult. But,
Right.
So got into a little bit of a rut, and what I do is if I have a problem, I deal with it, man. I don't I deal with it the right way. And so I went to a family doctor. I got one, and said, this is what's going on. I need you to forward me to shrink. And in the meantime, so I finally got one. It was an 8-month long waiting list.
Really?
Which sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's very little support for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what are you going to do in 8 months? You can do a lot in 8 months, actually,
yeah, exactly,
right? Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I was telling the one lady. She's like, "Oh, there's like an 8-month waiting list," and I said,
I might not be
hanging
here
from the ceiling."
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
By then she's like, "Don't say that. That's not funny."
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect?
That
bitch?
can't be the first time that she heard that, though.
No,
Yeah.
of course not. Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. So what else did I do? So I went to CAMH. I don't know if you know what CAMH is.
Yep.
Went and talked to somebody there. They're like, okay, yeah, you could use somebody to talk to. And he's like, well, it's $120 an hour.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
that's steep.
You know, it is steep. Is it worth it? You know, that's entirely subjective. It's too much. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
To be doing that every week.
Right.
Which is, an ideal kind of, period.
Yeah.
Like interval for seeing somebody.
Yep. Unless you're making millions upon millions of dollars, then it's tough for the average person to fork out that kind of dough.
Absolutely. So yeah, decided not to do that, and then finally got the call and went in to see him. So who I'm seeing now is a psycho, and I've seen some in the past.
Yep.
And they've been into like CBT, which is like the cognitive behavioral therapy approach, which is great.
Yep.
But after speaking with him, he's like, okay, we're going to take you to the psychotherapy route.
Okay.
And I was like, what about CBT? He's like, well, it seems like you're past that.
Right.
So, and what psychotherapy is and psychoanalysis is basically you go back to day one, your childhood.
Right.
You tell them everything, like about who your parents are mainly, and how you grew up, and
all the way back.
All the way back. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, and there are no rules. It's great, man. There's no judgment. You can go in there, do whatever you want. You say whatever you want.
Right.
There's no judgment. It's awesome. You can say whatever you want. There's no fear for, anything legal.
Right.
Unless you talk about hurting yourself.
Right.
But anyway, so this guy opened me up, and I guess I'm convinced now. I don't want to say I truly believe that I was wrong about you're kind of born a certain way with your brain.
Right.
This guy's saying it has nothing to do with that. Nobody's born with that sort of physical deficiency.
Okay.
Unless you're like autistic or something. That's different.
Sure.
But in terms of depression and anxiety, I thought for the longest time something you're born with.
Yep.
You can't do anything about it.
Yep.
So this guy's like, no, it's the way it's environment.
It is environment.
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, are you sure, man? Like, how can you make that sort of a statement? How can you be so bold about that? He's like, I can, like with all the research that's coming out, especially now, and everything is read. I was like, but isn't it like 50-50 or something? Isn't there any sort of component to it that is physical? Like basically it's the nature versus nurture debate.
Right.
Is what kind of I was going into with them, and what I've discovered it to be mainly nurture.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's something that you kind of knew?
Yep.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. And I mean, even when you talk about genetics, like we'll still openly discuss the fact that, okay, well, I mean, if you have anxiety, your kid will likely also have anxiety.
Yes.
That's not necessarily due to the fact that it's in your genes.
Exactly.
But
it's because you're an anxious person.
You're an anxious person. You're going to pick up on that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you say environment and people say genetic, well, of course, it's, they can kind of go hand in hand because you're watching this person dealing with anxiety. Of course, you're going to pick up on that.
And that's what I meant by it's easy to misunderstand the sources.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. So when people, and there's still people that probably think they could get it due to genetics, but this is where it might be an interesting experiment for me because I've been removed from my daughter's life for, she lives 8 hours away. I'm removed from a lot of it. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not she picks that up or whether or not her mom might have it. I don't know. But that's where we could totally just, for me, I could tell right away. Be like, okay,
she'll be the guinea pig.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately. Luckily, I know the skills to help her through whatever,
Absolutely. But I mean, no matter where you're brought into the world, how or whatever, there's always going to be something to complain about.
Right.
There's always going to be something.
Yeah.
That's actually what this guy tells me, is that everybody in their life at one point, and it's usually after they move out, they get their own place. Yep. There has to be a period where these new adults have to go through a period of being angry at their parents.
Really?
Yeah. Sorry. Angry? Yes, angry.
Angry.
Not hateful.
Right.
But angry.
Why do you think that? Like, why does he say that? Is there
because when you're being raised as a toddler or whatever, as a child, you don't have a choice how your life is going to be.
Right.
These are the most delicate
years.
Yeah. You're a sponge. You're absorbing everything you see.
Yep.
No matter who you're born under, there's always going to be something to be angry about.
Right.
And it's a healthy thing to do. You got to be angry with them. You get over it, and you end up loving them 10 times more.
Right.
So it's and the problem with that is that people are very they feel guilty to do that, because it's like, how can I feel angry at my parents, the people that gave me life?
Right. Sure.
But it's it makes sense.
Yeah.
And, I buy that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So now I'm learning that. So what we're doing now is basically, I guess what I do now is anything that's on my mind, you talk about, and which is great, because why is it on your mind in the first place?
Right.
It must be occupying your thoughts, so it's worth it to talk about. But the main theme of our sessions is that the goal is to obviously get off meds.
Yep.
Because I'm still on them.
Right.
And be able to deal with everything without that crutch.
Yeah.
Crutch. Not to say that meds aren't good.
They have their place.
Good. Yeah. But they're abused. They're overused.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, every time I think that there's an issue with our society today. I mean, it's one thing to have anxiety disorder and depression. It's another thing to have emotions.
Yes.
So, I mean, every time we are supposed to feel sad at times.
Yes.
We are supposed to feel things that come up within us.
Exactly.
To push them down and take meds for every little feeling is not the solution.
Not at all.
Right? I mean, you are a human being. The whole point of being human is to feel things, right?
Yeah.
So,
and shame on the doctors who are pushing them, right?
Yeah.
So if a patient comes in and they're like, "Oh, my dad just died," and it's like, okay, like, feel the pain, man. Get over, like,
you're allowed to,
yeah, and that will kind of exhaust that emotion, and then you'll get over it.
Right.
But if somebody comes in and says, Doc, I've been depressed for 5 years, I have no idea why.
Right.
Then, okay, put them on a med as a Band-Aid solution.
Right.
And get them to go see someone.
Yep.
So and it's unfortunate. We don't have the resources. We don't allocate money to that field. We should, because it's
huge.
It comes back to help the government out, right?
Yep.
Like the more able you are to work, the more you can pay your taxes.
Yep. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, man.
And how many times, I mean, people end up in the emergency room thinking they might have a heart attack when it's anxiety or panic.
Right,
and
true.
We're not teaching these symptoms or anything. It's
that's why I'm really glad that it's starting to happen now.
Yeah. I mean, this is a nice time because it's becoming more accepted. People are starting to research what's going on, and they're not just trying to take a pill to cover it up. They're going to say, hey, what other alternative solutions are there?
Right.
And maybe I should, before I jump on this medication.
Yes. And they are kind of hidden, right?
Yeah.
These other resources.
They are.
Which is too bad, right?
Yeah. They're kind of starting to surface. More people are doing things like yoga and, meditation and trying to eat healthier.
Yes.
I mean, and take vitamins such as vitamin D and omega. I mean, people are looking for different solutions, but the doctors are still. It takes time to listen to people's symptoms, and maybe they have to come back a few times. It's easier for them to just bring out that prescription pad and say, hey, why don't you try this? Come back in a few months, let me know how you feel, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Yeah.
It's almost just a go-to.
Yeah, and I guess it's just